Everyone is talking about how difficult it is to secure a job. And I'm not going to lie to you, it is difficult. Okay, we're living at a time where there is so many changes and there isn't necessarily the infrastructure to support those different changes. So we're having low resource, low capacity, and people are getting frustrated that they're doing everything that they can in order to get their job. Now, some people can't even get their CV through the door, let alone secure an interview. So if you're securing interviews, I'd say great, well done. You know that your CV works. But you now have to think to yourself, does my CV align to how I deliver when it comes to interview? How can you ensure this is the case? Now, I don't need to talk about CV stuff because I've spoken extensively about CV stuff on my YouTube channel. So you can check out some of my previous videos centered around that. But I've consistently said that your CV is a marketing tool. It is a marketing tool. I have to say this again and again and again. But just because it's a marketing tool, it doesn't mean that you have to fabricate the information on there. Now, even if you slightly tweak or iterate the information on there, you have to back it up. You can't just tweak it for tweaking's sake because you know this works. No, you would tweak it because you're aligning it to a role that makes sense and you've delivered on those different deliverables or skills that you're looking to highlight and show. So the first thing I want to say is, provided your CV is on point, have you done research on this organization? Have you done research? What does that specifically look like? Now, what most people do, which is not a bad start at all, is they'll go to the company's website or the suggested links, if there are any suggested links, and try to understand the background behind this organization. So they're looking at specific things like their mission, vision, values, all of that kind of jazz there. Maybe even some sort of like case studies or projects that they've done and all that kind of stuff there, which is all really good stuff. It gives you a bit of a flavor. But it would be better to speak to someone if you can. Maybe you can message someone on LinkedIn. Maybe you can even message the hiring manager or the recruiter or somebody within that organization. Just say, hey, I understand that you work in X, Y, and Z. I'd love to have a conversation to learn more about this environment, this space, or this role. That's definitely step number one. I remember I used to do this all the time. Sometimes I wouldn't even know what questions to ask. I was that unprepared, but I wanted to show face because I felt like my presence would definitely be enough to show interest. And of course, I wasn't stupid. I had questions to ask in mind. I just didn't prepare them ahead of time all the time. So questions you could ask is, okay, what does the company culture look like? How does it feel like to you? What would you expect in a specific role like this? What has been done before? Why do you need this role specifically now? What does like a good 30, 60 or 90 days look like to you? Etc, etc. All of these different questions are useful. And of course, you may want to save some of these questions for the interview at the end, but you can do this at the beginning if you want to. This is showing eagerness and it's almost like a pre-interview, so to speak. So if you can get the opportunity, definitely do that. Maybe you get that through the recruiter. Maybe you directly message them. Maybe you message someone within the organization via LinkedIn as an example. Maybe you do it via the website because you can see emails. There are multiple different ways in which you can do this. The next thing you can do is, whilst you're looking at, things like the website and all that kind of jazz there, I would say if it is this type of organization or role that you're going for, check to see if there are any minutes, okay? If there are any board minutes, stakeholder minutes, whatever it may be, that shed more light in terms of the climate and the flavor of what's going on within that organization. I'm telling you, that's a big win because you're getting an understanding of what is the most latest thing that's happening. Now, not every organization publishes their minutes from board meetings and stuff. And of course, the role that you're doing may not even relate to that. But this is just another sort of like clue in terms of how you can do this stuff. Okay, so think about board minutes and all that kind of jazz. Another thing that I think is overlooked a lot, and sometimes people can't be bothered to do this, is to look at their latest strategy and or policy documents. Okay, so if there is a certain strategy, sometimes they may call it a plan or a business plan or whatever it may be, or policy documents. Again, that allows you to understand what approach did they want to take and what are their key aims and objectives for the future. And if there is some way you can align to that stuff or connect with it, you're winning because you're talking a language that they understand. Okay? You can, yes, research or LinkedIn, the hiring manager and all that kind of jazz there. But the reality is, that only goes so far. Like, you're kind of soothing the ego of an individual as opposed to understanding what is required for that team, for that role, for that position. So looking at the strategy and or policy, key big wins. And of course, we have AI, okay? Should you rely on AI? No. You do need to read. You do need to check some stuff out. Yes, some of you may be checking Glassdoor and all that kind of jazz there, blah, 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 blah. These are all things you can do. But you can check things like Perplexity or Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT. Perplexity is great for the research, by the way. So that you can get all of this stuff in one space. And of course, even if you do this manually, you can then pull it into the ChatGPTs of the world and conglomerate this information so it's coherent by nature. What I also find really useful, depending on where I'm going, is checking YouTube. So there are certain talks or there are certain presentations where the actual hiring manager themselves, or sometime in the past, they have spoken about this specific area or team or department or policy or strategy in detail, been able to internalize it. And of course, again, with the AIs, it just makes it so much easier. You can be creative with all of this stuff. So I've just given you a whole flurry of stuff to really sort of embed and understand the organization. And it doesn't have to take crazy long. It can take, I would say, 1 to 3 days if you're serious. Maybe it may take a week for some of you. That's perfectly understandable because everyone's busy. There doesn't have to be a time frame on it as long as you give yourself enough time to prepare for the subsequent stages that I'm going to talk about. So those are some really important sort of like foundational sort of like things to do. The next thing you want to do is check the job description. Now, if you're in a contracting space, sometimes there is no job description. Some of you guys who've never been contracting before, you know how harsh this place is. It can be harsh. Sometimes there's no job description. So what do you do? What's the next best thing? Find a job description online or get AI, generative AI, to generate a job description based on the information you've been given so far. So you have at least an idea. And of course, if you're an expert or professional within that space, then you'll recognize specifically what is required anyway to a degree. It just may not be tailored to that specific sort of like environment. And so with that in mind, if you do have a job spec, then what you want to do is read it head to toe. It will highlight some of the strategy. It will highlight some of the plans. But if you can print it out, or maybe you want to do this digitally, highlight key things or phrases that stand out to you, okay? So you need to be able to understand specifically what skills you have and what skills you don't have. Maybe you want to highlight the skills that you don't have, or even potentially highlight the ones that you do have in different colors so you can just see the contrast. So it gives you an idea of what you need to work on or what you may need to talk more on, so to speak. You already know your CV works if you've got the interview. You already know it works. So it's thinking about what are the areas you need to sort of develop on a bit more. So make it your friend, okay? Now, of course, if you developed your CV and let's say you tailored it specifically for this role, you would have done some of this work already. But just in case you didn't, because sometimes we just apply for stuff, we're not always checking the job description, do this stuff. But you also want to understand, I know for the public sector, okay, or at least for the NHS, and this may be similar for other places, you want to understand the hierarchical and team structure, because that may give you an idea in terms of the dynamics and the communication channels and the reporting structures and all this kind of stuff there, which gives you thoughts in terms of scenarios that you could possibly think about, okay? So hopefully that gives you an idea, but highlight the key skills that you need to sort of like develop and think about, okay? Because the next step is like understanding what is the gap. What is the skill gap? Based on your experience, what is missing? And you want to start working out what is missing. And this is where you may get other people, your partners, ChatGPT, to help you recognize how do you cover those gaps and can you? So you're clear about your skills, but maybe you say, okay, cool, ChatGPT, based on my CV and based on this job spec, like what skills are missing? And 2, how can I fill these gaps? What does this look like based on my experience? So you need to do that specific type of work and start to fill out that stuff. So are there any examples where you've shown, I don't know, financial acumen or leadership skills, whether in a supporting capacity, a managerial capacity, or a leadership capacity? So don't be afraid to sort of exercise and develop and practice some of that stuff. But moving on from there, if you are aware of my PAR model, problem, action, result, I'm not going to label a point because people would have watched my videos before. And if you haven't, definitely check out some of those videos before where I talk about this stuff, problem, action, result. you would have practiced and understood how to answer some of these questions anyway. Because the PAR idea clearly identifies what problem you were solving, okay? But then for the A for the action, it allows you to start thinking about the skill analysis, the skill gap, and what different skills you may not have mentioned when trying to solve this problem. Okay, really, really important stuff. And then the R is, really centered around what tangible, measurable skills are you solving. Really, really important stuff, okay? So don't be afraid to sort of like leverage AI in this stuff, okay? Because it's really going to be important. And whilst you've done all of this jazz, the AI element comes into play where you can essentially start to develop questions. So what I've done in the last 18 months or so, or even 24 months, is I've used AI to generate questions for me and also the answers based on a job spec, okay? And based on my CV. Now, the answers element is not that important because I don't really care what the answers are to a degree. And what do I mean by this? I'm not trying to memorize what AI is telling me for the answers because that's not authentic at all and I'm going to forget. I'm more concerned about the triggers, the keywords that are popping up in certain questions that trigger responses in my mind. And it's not that I've memorized answers, it's that I'm so ingrained with the PAR model that I can literally pick an experience and talk in it because the PAR model covers a lot of different scenarios. I'll give you an example. Well, I can't give you a concrete example because I'm not in an interview situation. But let's say, someone asks a question about, okay, how have you been able to manage a project in the past? And give me an example that is dealing with digital transformation. Okay, I'm scanning through my head. I remember that I was leading the child health integration for London in the NHS, for the public health team or wherever it may be. Okay, cool. What problem was I solving? I know specifically that we were transferring 20, again, health record departments into 4 digital hubs. Okay, that was the problem. We needed to solve that because the whole paper transferring from one place to another was not practical, and it meant that whether you were trying to get information from one place to another, it was convoluted, it was complex, it was difficult, paper was getting lost. So this was solving the problem by streamlining it. Okay, what actions did I take? Okay, we spoke to the incumbent providers. We did a procurement. We onboarded 4 new different sort of like digital child health system suppliers. Then we migrated all of this information from X to Z. I'm not going to obviously do this live, whatever it may be, but you get the point. That's the action bit. I'm following a certain model. Procurement's the key model. Prince2 is the other model in terms of the project management. What are the tangible sort of like results? We saved, let's say for example, you could say it made the process 50% more efficient, and you can tell that based on timings. And then you could also say that we saved, money based on the fact that we didn't need to send, letters anymore because it was all done by SMS, which meant that we saved up to 50p per transaction or sending or whatever it may be. I'm making this up, obviously. But the point being made is that thinking about that, I can think about stakeholder engagement. I can think about project management situations. I can think about managing risk because I know what that whole thing looks like for my experience. Do you understand? It's not about memorizing a response. It's about being cognizant and being clear about what did you do in your previous work experience aligned to a framework. That's why it's powerful. And so when you are seeing those different questions that pop up via AI, and I would do 10 to 20 different questions just to exhaust the point, you're confident to talk about that stuff. Or you can lean on other experiences as well. So hopefully that makes it extremely clear for you. So practice. Practice makes perfect. Sometimes when I'm feeling like I can't be bothered, because that sometimes does happen, I'll practice and record myself practicing. So I will practice like recording my phone, okay, or record myself via my phone. And then what I'll do is, number one, I will listen to what I'm saying, first of all. Then I will watch what I'm saying without the sound, and then I'll do both. And whilst I'm doing all of that stuff, I'm just writing notes in terms of what I'm picking up. Recently, what I've done is I've uploaded it onto a platform where I've been able to extract the information and then get AI to do some more analysis in terms of this stuff. Now, if you don't want to do any of that stuff, you could just record what you're saying once and then listen to it again and again and again. And if you have a chance to do it again, then you record yourself and listen to it and see how you'd pick up on those different stuff, because we're quick to see what doesn't work. We're quick to see it, which is great in terms of improvement and feedback. So these are different ways in which you can, you can adjust things here and there. Of course, you can use things like Microsoft PowerPoint on your phone, and when you do when you're on presentation style, there is this rehearse mode where it picks up how quickly you're speaking, when you need to pause, different words that you're saying. This is also another thing that you can do. I'm going in with this because I just want to show you all of the options, okay? So hopefully you get a clear idea of what all of this stuff looks like. So I don't think there's anything else. I think I've spoken about body language and cues and all that kind of stuff there, which comes down to the video. I've spoken about behavioral techniques and all of that kind of stuff there. Actually, that's a key one. When it comes to sort of like interviews, I would say that I always make it a thing to try to, like, I don't know what the word is. Like, I need them to know that I understand the environment. And I'm always thinking of some sort of like light joke that kind of like shows and highlights, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I've been there before, sort of thing. Or it may be so like insider that it's like, this person has definitely done this before, So you have to remember, when it comes to the interview, obviously you need to dress on point, hair on point, whatever that looks like for you. Smell on point if it's in person. If it's not, I would definitely be suited and booted or in a dress or whatever makes sense for you. Okay, you need to look smart. There has to be good lighting if it's, sort of like in your own home. I've got this set up, okay? I didn't have this set up for years. You can watch my old YouTube videos. It's very different. And I specifically use, you can't even see it now, but I'm pointing at my other camera where I'm using a DSLR to be my webcam, because again, branding wise, everyone says, wow, your camera looks on point. How have you done this, sort of thing? But it's to get that sort of like quality. Do you understand? So think about all of this kind of stuff. You want to be warm and smile. You want to give people the right net of eyes. Okay, so you're not always darting around the room. You're not just staring at one person. You're looking up. You're not looking down. You're sat up against sort of like your seat. However comfortable you feel. So whether your arms is on the sort of like chair rest or on your lap, and you just need to show confidence and comfortability. Do you understand? Show up at a time that makes sense. For me, I like to show up. If it's a virtual one, I may even show up a minute before. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not trying to hang around or wait and do all this rubbish. I just want to do what I'm doing. I'm not trying to practice a day before. That's not what I'm trying to do, because if I've done my preparation, why am I trying to overcomplicate things on the day? Yes, there may be a little reading here and there, but I'm not trying to do that too tough. There are some people who like to, be in a certain zone half an hour before. That's perfectly fine. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll go for a walk and just imbue myself with confidence. Okay, self-affirmations, prayer walk, all of that kind of stuff. And I'm telling myself I can, I will, and I must. That's how I got this specific contract that I'm on currently right now. Okay, so think about all of this kind of jazz, and you want to be able to. You don't have to make them laugh or anything like that, but you need to be a warm character. There's always going to be one sort of like person on the interview panel who's going to try and rip you to shreds. Expect it. Because if you didn't expect it, then that individual may not be there. Do you understand? So you have to think to yourself, how do I prepare myself in certain situations? Okay. So just be prepared when it comes to that stuff. And always have some sort of question at the end. Okay. It's not always, oh, what is company culture like here? Oh, blah, 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 blah. Maybe there's something specific to the project. I noticed that, X deliverables were supposed to be delivered by, X time. What do you anticipate being some of the biggest, determinants against that delivery? As an example, what sort of program management methodology approach has been used currently at the moment? That's like, come on, you need to show your expertise. Give them a consultation. You understand? Like, show them that you know what you're talking about. So not just the basic, that. Yeah, you can ask those questions. But for me, when I'm thinking about asking the questions, it's almost like I'm already trying to solve the problem. Those are the questions I'm asking. So think like a consultant. This is why I said the consultant mindset will help you. So all of this stuff imbues confidence in you. and it puts you in a position where you are ready to go. Okay. So I'm going to leave it there, man. Hopefully this has given you the invigoration and the knowledge and the skills that you need, or at least the information that you need to get the skills, so that you feel more confident when it comes to delivering at interviews, so you can secure the job, secure the bag, and secure your future. If you want to see more videos centered around portfolio careers, contracting, consulting, leadership, all of the above, again, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And please, if you believe anybody should be watching these videos, please share it with them. And if you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. All right then, as always, take care, God bless, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.